The 49-year-old Uzumaki who became Hokage, Episode 41, The Storm is Rising Again. In the past month, Xingyan thought that he had to enter the life of cultivation, eating and sleeping at 3 o'clock, but he did not expect that the calm days were suddenly broken. After visiting the Whirlpool family for thousands of years, Xingyan once again saw the day. Don't you, let me help me to research and develop ninjutsu? You think I am confused by my grandfather? In the face of a set of rhetoric, Xingyan said that he did not believe. Two grandfathers, I have a lot of ideas recently, such as illusions that can deprive others of their vision. They can use a detonating spell to psychic out other detonating spells. The blinking technique that can be used in the water can instantly appear in the waters. Everywhere. Every time I say a word, Xingyan's face is black. The technique of darkness, the intertwining detonation, the instant water, are all developed. Xingyan looked up and looked at the day, but found that his face was darker than him. My older brother is the second grandfather, you are stuck in the traitor around me. I have just developed these techniques, you know the name. Masahiko's face was stiff and he unknowingly said the words in his heart. A glimpse of my heart, nodded and nodded, yes, your older brother is my person. Between the columns, you will bother to take a black pot. Within the Chancho family, the pillars are imagining the construction of the village, and suddenly they sneezed. Slightly silent, he smiled gratifiedly. Do you think so? On the side of the Whirlpool family, the day is still trying to cheat Xingyan to go to thousands of hands. To grandfather, in addition to these several techniques, I have other ninjas to develop. Xingyan licked his mouth and said, let me lie to me. The books in the seal book are also developed. The rest of the earth is reborn. When you are alive, it is not completely completed. It shows how to get the wood leaves. You will develop after 10 years. Thinking of this, Xingyan suddenly remembered a band that was rarely noticed during the day. When chased by the Golden Horn Silver Point troops, the hands and fingers touch the ground, you can feel the number and strength of the Golden and Silver Corner troops. Although I don't know the specific name, this technique is obviously a perceptual class of ninja. Don't you, what kind of ninjutsu do you have to develop? Xingyan decisively asked. Perceived class? Really not. He replied slowly, it is really necessary to develop a perceptual ninjutsu. You are not a perceptive ninja, just to help me develop this technique. Masahiko shook his head. I still want to trick me into 1,000 hands. I have no problem in developing ninths in the Whirlpool. Why do you have to go to 1,000 hands? Let's talk, what is it? I smiled awkwardly. I still can't stop you. It's Uchiha, and I have prepared for war recently. What are you waiting for? Go quickly. I will go back and pack my luggage. Xingyan turned and left, leaving a look of shackles. I am slowly rushing home, and I am excited. Is it finally going to war again? Wood leaves are coming soon. Xingyan thought about it, but decided to bring 3 apprentices. The other people of the Vortex family would not participate, so that the 3 apprentices could be more tempered in the battlefield. Anyway, there are pillars to deal with. Now I am facing other people in the Uchiha family, enough to protect them 3. Therefore, after an hour, I saw 4 men and women with big bags and small bags standing in front of him. A brief explanation, in the meantime, accepted the saying that Masahiko was arrogant, and the group and the Vortex chief told each other and went to the 1,000 hands. On the way, I have explained the intention of this time to Masahiko. Since the spot was slammed between the columns 9 years ago, there has been no war between Qiansho and Uchiha. The Uchiha family has invaded many small families, but they have bypassed thousands of hands every time. This time, Uchiha doesn't seem to be working on a small family. It has the meaning of a kind of family. According to the worst plan, Uchiha may have a way to deal with Big Brother. Xingyan heard the explanation, but he was not very worried. He thought to himself, I am afraid this is not the case. It is the eyes of the spot that are going to be blind. So this is the last fight of Uchiha. But Xingyan thought thoughtfully. The spot is not like a coward. If there is no hope at all, it is impossible to raise the family. If you control him, the sky will fall down between the pillars. Teacher, uncle, and uncle talking to you. Next to it, Nanako saw that Xingyan was caught in self-conceived meditation and interrupted. Xingyan returned to God, stunned and smirked. What is the uncle of the day? From this point, you should call him a slap in the face, and 2 of you. When I heard this, the 3 disciples reacted differently. Nanako showed a helpless expression. She was embarrassed by the child, but she really wanted to do this. The well was excited and shouted, oh. I know. Xingyan's face is black, and there is such a sturdy disciple, a little shameful. The interaction between Masahiko and his disciples was ignored at the moment, and I was still thinking about what Uchiha would do. After reaching the 1,000 hands and 1 family, the the three disciples were simply settled, and Jingyan was taken to the column between the two. I saw them between the columns, and I was very happy. Don't go till you finally came back. Just a while ago, the Uchiha family gave us a gauntlet. War book? Masahiko's face is arrogant. In the warring states, the battles of various ethnic groups have never heard of the fact that there is a war. Between the columns, let me see the essay. Ah, Grandpa, this is the reaction between the columns. You are here. Masahiko ignored the column between the lines and took the gauntlet directly on the table in front of the column. After 3 days, decide the battle between the wind and the valley? Masahiko swears, what a ghost, how can you not fight the forbidden? I saw the contents of the gauntlet and I was puzzled. Big brother, is there a scam? We went to the wind and the valley, what if the Uchiha spot is attacking our family? Shaking his head between the columns, the spot is not such a person. In the meantime, the notice goes on, let the tribes organize the clothes, and go to the wind and the valley tomorrow morning. Big brother. It was obviously not very reassuring during the day, but I could only nod and agree if I saw a serious expression of long-lostness between the columns. So, who will stay in the country? Pensive moments in the column, opening the way, let Tanyu stay. Chansho Tanyu, after the competition for mines 9 years ago, successfully broke through the patriarchal level. Nowadays, it is already the new elder of the 1,000 hands. Great elders. During the moment, I meditated for a moment. I know. Turned and went out to inform the people. When I walked away from the day, I looked at Jingyan and opened my eyes. 2 grandfathers, this war is troublesome for you to hide in the tribe. If you don't have an accident, you don't need to take it yourself. Masahiko nodded. I am here to protect my 3 disciples. You don't want me to take the initiative. Between columns. Episode 42, Wind and Valley. In the evening, in the wind and the valley, the wind whistling, blowing the grass around the swaying, under the strong wind, the wide robes of Masahiko were blown and screamed. Thousands of people gathered on the broad plains, staring at the front, and the clothes were also close to the body under the strong wind. They only wear thousands of hands in armor, and the clothes are also tight-fitting, which is more conducive to battlefield battles. It is completely different from the wide and hat-like robes that Jingyan wears. On the sidelines, I was helplessly holding my forehead. 2 grandfather, what are you doing? Can you use this clothes for fighting? Jingyan glanced at him. You don't understand. Your older brother has let me hide in the hands of a large army. How hidden this dress is. Looking back, the 3 little figures stood in the same clothes, wearing the same clothes, and their mouths twitched. The fool can't see that you have 4 problems. But for this second grandfather, he is really there is no way, only to bow to the column. I feel that the big brother made a bad idea. The column was ignored, the ice swept, the weeds were already very tall, and covered the dark brown land underneath. 10 years ago, the wind and the valley experienced a terrible war. The whole land was not born, the blood was soaked in the earth, and the land became blood red. Now, the weeds are flourishing and cover the earth, perhaps because of the nourishment of underground blood. These weeds are exceptionally cut, and the hands are crossed on the top, and they will be cut if they are not careful. Reminiscences between the columns, it was the war, and the father and Yukibo Taijima had died together. Masahiko saw a look of memories between the columns and thought of the war he heard about more than a decade ago. It was the most influential war in the warring states period in recent years. It officially declared that the older generation of the warring states had withdrawn from the historical stage, and the younger generation headed by the Kianshizu and Yukibo spots officially began to control the power of the various ethnic groups. Jingyan thought about it and said, is it now the older generation or the younger generation? It's 10 years younger than the one in the column called my grandfather. On the one hand, the new 2 elders of the 1,000 hands saw the 3 people fall into a strange silence, and they could not help but interrupt. The patriarch, Uchiha, said that after 3 days of war, we are here 2 days in advance, is it first to let the people take a break? It was only after the column that I came back and shouted, everyone, camping in place. In the past wars, the ninjas usually rested on the open space, at most with 1 or 2 tents for meetings or important people. But now, the 1,000 hands and the masses have produced the seal reels developed by Masahiko, so. After half an hour, Jingyan looked at the corners of the camp and the horns of the camp, and the thousands of hands were afraid that they would not come to vacation. However, when the thousands of people took out all kinds of meat and some barbecues from the seal scroll, Masahiko couldn't help but mutter. I am a great person to develop the seal scroll. This can also be eaten fresh on the battlefield. Meat. Aside, the expression changed slightly between the day, and squatted toward the column. Big brother, I didn't let them bring these things. The column between the guilty smile, the people think very thoughtful. Shouted loudly. Since everyone brought so many barbecue materials, take advantage of Uchiha, don't come, hold a party. Oh. Long live the patriarch. A warm reply. So, in this wind and valley that is about to become a battlefield, a grand banquet is suddenly held. Fortunately, Uchiha was very punctual and said 3 days and 3 days without disturbing the party. On the second day, I was holding a simple water shovel and a bandit to clean up the debris left by the banquet, and I was afraid that someone would know how thousands of hands would hold a banquet on the battlefield. After cleaning up, several people gathered together to prepare fortifications. That's right, to reach the battlefield so long in advance, of course not for the banquet, but to seize the opportunity. Where the winds and valleys of the ghosts are completely plains, and dare to be called valleys? Jing Yan followed the column and circled and exported. I thought about relying on the romance of the Three Kingdoms and various anti-Japanese dramas in the past, and playing a handsome in front of the column and the shackles. It is better to bury the Uchiha wave. It turns out that the so-called wind and valley are actually a plain? 2 grandfathers explained the side. It turned out to be a valley, but the battle changed the terrain more than a decade ago. Masahiko nodded. That should be renamed. It will be called the wind and the original here. Silently, he followed his older brother to arrange fortifications. In fact, there are no fortifications, but it is to let the endurance and the Zhongren simply dig out some hiding places, distribute some detonation, so that these middle and lower endurance can play a greater role. The War of the Warring States has always been like this. Masahiko saw that he had nothing to do with him. He called 3 disciples and made some simple embarrassment before the war. In the eyes of Masahiko, the youngest is the strongest of the youngest, and has already had the strength of ordinary forbearance. However, in the battle, Yizi's timid character made him unable to win well at the same time. In this war, Jing Yan's most worrying thing was her. Considering it, let her enter the simple fortifications and throw some hardships in it. Nothing is good, don't fight face to face with the enemy. As for the 2 of you, you must keep up with me after the battle begins. I will arrange the appropriate enemy to train you. Jing Yan looked excited and shouted loudly. Nanako has a hard face. Teacher, let me protect the quilt. Jing Yan glanced at her. I don't know who protects it. I have taught you how to use seals for actual combat. This battle just happens to test your mastery. Arranged 3 disciples, Jing Yan once again doing nothing, boringly looking at the column. They directed the construction of fortifications, watching the thousands of hands and people to bear some pre-war preparations. Unknowingly, the time has come to noon. The Qianzhou people have finished all preparations, rest in their respective camps, waiting for the arrival of Uchiha. At this time, Masahiko suddenly felt a slightly familiar chakra fluctuation. This kind of chakra is not the Uchiha family, it seems to be 1,000 hands Chanyu. Sure enough, there was a figure in the distance, which was the great elders who should have stayed in the family, and thousands of hands. The column quickly greeted and did not open yet. Qianzhou Chanyu shouted, the patriarch, it is not good. Someone found the traces of Uchiha's wave spot behind the ethnic group. The face changed a lot, big brother, I am worried. A wave between the columns, is there only one person? Qianzhou Chanyu gasped and replied, I only found him alone. Nod between the columns, pig, do you want to fight against me one-on-one? In the meantime, bring people here to prepare for Uchiha, I will go back and block the spots. Said, the column hesitated slightly, Chanyu, let us together. The 2 couldn't take care of the others and quickly returned to the 1,000 hands. Episode 43, Young Face. After the column went, the wind and the valley fell into a silence. Over the years, as the war of mining has been widely circulated, the columns have gradually become the undisputed strongest in the warring states. In the hearts of thousands of people, as long as there are pillars and patriarchs present, there is no enemy that can't be defeated, even if it is the Uchiha family. Now that the column has left, the momentum of the 1,000 hands is somewhat low. Looking around, I said, what happened? Big brother went back, but the patriarch of the Uchiha family is not there. Can we lose to Uchiha? When I heard that I lost to Uchiha, the people of the Qianzhou people quickly cheered up. How can they believe that they lost to Uchiha in the past year? I was thinking about it, and I always felt that something was wrong. The pillars and the spots are not there. Is this war not the one where Chu and I died? However, after half an hour, Jing Yan's face changed dramatically. His perceptual ability perceives that the squad ninja is coming, and the Uchiha family is coming. The key is that the one headed by is obviously Uchiha. Damn. The column will be led. There is no such plot in the original book. Is it the plot where I changed? Is it because I learned the column between the fairy tales early? Jing Yan looked around, and the thousands of people here are afraid. Not enough to fight against Uchiha. Hey, Jing Yan sighed and turned to look at Nanako and Jing Yan, and said, you 2 go back to protect the Yizi. I am afraid I will not be able to take care of you in the next battle. Teacher. Jing Wei was trying to ask the reason, but was pulled back by Nanako. She was the first time she saw Xingyan face serious. Second grandfather, why do you let them go back? Masahiko smiled. The next war, we all have to work hard. I still have to wait again, but I was alarmed by the bang from the distance. On the horizon of a distant place, a black dot suddenly appeared, and then the black dot became a line, then turned into a large black, and more, coming here at a rapid speed. Come on. Xingyan's heart was tight. It's really a Uchiha wave, a transformation solution. In order to maintain the appearance of 48 years old, Masahiko has been using the transformation technique. Although the LV-10's transformation is very small, it usually has no effect, but in the battle, it still needs a small amount of chakra to maintain the transformation. Even in the War of Mining, because he has been maintained by the Chimu Patriarch, he has not solved the transformation. But this time facing, Yuji wave spot. I didn't ask again during the day. Actually, I didn't have to ask again. At the moment I saw Uchiha, I understood all the actions of Masahiko. He turned his head quickly. Two grandfathers, I am going to stop the Uchiha wave spot. You just need to quickly defeat Uchiha Izumi, and we will have a chance to win this war. When I said it, it seemed that something was wrong. Masahiko smiled slightly, took off his hat, and took off his large robes. How? I was shocked by my young handsome grandfather's handsome face. I still want to stop, let you see my current strength. Second grandfather, you. Said the day, there was some whimper, Xingyan thought he was moved by his handsome face, and cried. Who knows, turn around quickly, look at the thousands of people who are panicked, don't panic. In order to stop the Uchiha wave, Masahiko too has overdrafted the vitality. We just need to quickly defeat the other people of Uchiha, the victory is still belong to us. The Chancho people looked at the young face of Xingyan, and many people were moved and responded with a loud voice. Break the Uchiha. How can I not know that I am so great? Xingyan's heart is dark. The speed of the ninja is very fast. When you see him, it means that he is not far from you. During the speech, Yujibwa has already brought the tribe to the 200 meters of the 1,000 hands. When it is closer, it enters the range of the ninja attack of thousands of hands. Yujibwa looked around and looked disappointed. The single cell between the columns is really not there. After all, I took a look at Chuan. Xingyan's heart is clear, and he knows that even if he knows that he is not in the middle of the column, he will not do the trick of cheating the column. Big brother. Kwana looked at the spot, this opportunity is rare. I know. The spot broke the words of Quan Nai, and went up slightly, no nonsense, and directly printed, fire ignoring fire. The day was just about to be printed, but it was stopped by Masahiko. He stepped forward and said, Ming sucking hole. The hand-filled spell that has been secretly prepared has completely absorbed the spotted fire. Zay, your opponent is me. Xingyan looked at Yujibwa, and said loudly. This technique. The spot is slightly indulgent, looking at Xingyan, opening the way, swirls? Next to Quan Nai whispered, I just noticed this vortex race. Big brother, do you think he is familiar? After a while, the deep memory of my mind emerged again. You guy, the old guy 14 years ago. Masahiko smiled slightly. Spot, I can't think of you, I can recognize me. Uchiha appeared in anger. It's your old guy. Are you trying to fight with me now? Come on, I wanted to kill you 14 years ago. When the spot is said, it is necessary to rush forward, but it is stopped by Quan Nai. Big brother, the old guy has overdrafted his vitality and wants to stay for a long time. The 1,000 hands have already arranged the fortifications, and now they are attacking. If you are temporarily dragged by him, our people will probably lose a lot. Our people have just arrived at the battlefield all the way, and they have to take a rest. We are not safe, and the Hui people in the Qianshizu are not sure to return, at least 8 hours. Big brother, the overall situation is heavy. How done persuaded that the spottedly reluctantly agreed, ordered the road, Yukibo all, back thousands of miles, rest in place. Seeing that Yujibwa temporarily retired, not only did he not breathe a sigh of relief, but instead he was worried and turned to Xingyan. Two grandfathers, how long can you persist and now take the initiative to attack? Xingyan's face is black, and this is how he feels like he is dying at any time. Looking at the scene, Xingyan opened the way, no, just dragging, the column can come back best, I just don't do it, how long it will be no problem. Nodded at the moment to express understanding. At this time, the 3 disciples of Xingyan rushed over, with tears in their eyes, shouting, Teacher! I will cry out. Masahiko quickly comforted, the teacher is fine, the teacher's long life is very. No one believed that the 3 disciples had a sad expression, and the tears of the child had flowed down their cheeks. Masahiko is helpless. Hey, why is this situation going to happen, how can I be dead? Episode 44, Fighting Against Uchiha. An hour has passed and the sun has fallen halfway. the patriarch, the vortex people did not appear. A Uchiha scout quickly reported to the spot. The spot sits on the big stone, and the face is unbearable, and the channel is open. Kwanai, attack it, it will be dark after a while. Aside from the face of Kwanai, it's dark, but it's good for us, big brother. The spot hesitated and shook his head. When Kwanai saw it, she was surprised. Big brother, your eyes. See the spot default, immediately stand up, all members gather, ready to attack. On the other hand, Xingyan has got the movement of the Uchiha family by virtue of his perception. He is very helpless when he looks at the 3 disciples who are still crying. Well, don't cry, teacher, I haven't died yet, go back and wait, the battle is about to begin. After seeing the 3 people stay away, Xingyan was crying and laughing, and said, I can't explain this war, I can't explain it. In the meantime, I saw Uchiha attacked and shouted. All the staff are ready to meet. Xingyan looked at the distance of Uchiha's family, nodded slightly, and thought of a move. Several small fireballs appeared in front of him, but they did not directly bomb as before, but they were slightly condensed, and the shape of the small fireball gradually changed and became a small shuriken. Boiled spiral sword. Several burning small shurios roared like the Uchiha team. The Uchiha wave spot is different, and the 2-eye kaleidoscope rotates. You must be able to. The light blue giant punches all the swords. Old guy. You said that my opponent is you, right? Now I am coming. The screaming, the giant went straight to Xingyan. Masahiko turned his head and glanced at him, giving him a look that didn't have to be worried, and rushed toward the spot. One of the gods in the day shouted, thousands of people, fight. I went straight to the old rival Uchiha Izumi. While Yen rushed to the Uchi wave spot, he shouted loudly, Uchi wave spot, once again in 14 years, I hope you don't be as embarrassed as last time. I looked at him with a stunned look. I didn't look at the distance. I saw the distance between the giants and the hands of the giants. The fire is burning, the fire is extinguished. Come, shout in the mouth, this time, you will take another look. Xingyan looked at the flame and there was no defense. A special shuriken was thrown through the flame to the spot. When the sword was close to the spot, the sword was replaced by a sword, and it appeared in front of the spot. Ming Fantasy Killer. In the incredible gaze, he will be able to break through a hole, kicking the spot out of the foot, losing the control of the spot, and the giants will gradually dissipate. Pig, history is always amazingly similar. After 14 years, you have been kicked by me. Xingyan looked at the strong and steady shape, and smiled. The spotted face is ashamed. The old guy, still so many strange ninjutsu. The plaque stood upright. I didn't want to use it. It seems that I can't be merciful to this old guy. You must be able to. The eyes of both eyes shed tears, and the larger ones must be condensed, with 2 arms and 4 arms, 2 of them holding a huge lightsaber. Masahiko swayed his neck and looked bitter. It's too tired to fight with the giant. You have to look up. You are still bigger now. Do you want to exhaust me? Spotted and Xingyan nonsense, double sword squatting. Masahiko quickly concluded, the bandits, the land returned. The huge rock appeared in the middle of the 2, but after a while, Xingyan's face changed slightly, and the shuriken was replaced. The huge rock was spotted by 2 swords, and Xingyan wiped the sweat that did not exist on the forehead. Wow, come on, really, I'm afraid I'm really going to finish it. Masahiko is a god, fairy mode launch. In the glare, Xingyan's feelings for him suddenly became completely different. After a moment of squatting, the spotted color is black, is the same technique as the column? It is obviously a bad memory. Shanfo Wind Spiral Sword. Masahiko shouted, and hit the spot with a spiral hand sword that was completely different in power. The spotted back, watching the spiraling shuriken that grew bigger, sneer, you are far worse than the column. A sword slammed into the shuriken, but only a moment to block the face change, the double sword crossed a fence, still forced to slide out 100 meters before the hand sword was shaken. I am far worse than the column, but you are far worse than him. Masahiko oiled the fire. Sure enough, the spot is most unspeakable. Some people say that he is not as good as the column. Just standing still, he manipulated the giants to take a few steps back, and the 2 knives bowed to Xingyan. At the same time, his hands were printed. Fire, how to fire the ball. Specially designed shurikens attacked. I don't think it's a spot, so I quickly figured out the principle of my sword in my hand. But there are 3 swords like me. Xingyan said, smirking, while putting the sword in the 3 hands, throw in 3 directions. Yujibu's face color changed, and the blood-red eyes in the eyes rotated at high speed, and wanted to see the whereabouts of Qing Xingyan. However, in a blink of an eye, Xingyan in front of the spot disappeared, and the direction of the 3-handed sword did not have a positive figure. Under the ground. The spotted snoring, the sword in his hand, turned to the ground under his feet. Shan fought thousands of birds' sharp guns. Faced with the spotted slash, Jing Yan, who was drilled from the soil, chose hardwired for the first time, taking the opportunity to approach the spot again. Ming fantasy killer. The simple hands were once again caught in the spot, but the spot would not be the second time. With a pair of eyes, the instant illusion made Jing Yan slightly stunned, and once again awake. The spotlights were close at hand, but they could only launch the shuriken fortune again. After staying away from the spot, Masahiko gasped slightly. The must be able to do anything, except for the fantasy killer. I have no way to take him. Now that the spot has prepared, it is impossible to defeat him. Jing Yan looked around and found that the situation was slightly beneficial to the Thousand Hands. The three disciples cooperated with each other and barely protected themselves. Then, it is delaying back to the column or other battles to win the game. In the heart of Jing Yan, he thought that the immortal mode was lifted. In this mode, chakra was too expensive and not suitable for a protracted war. Spot saw Jing Yan gasping, high voice, "Old guy, this will not work. You are still far away," said, and chased again. Boiled over steamed. Masahiko did not want to use this dangerous ninjutsu, but now it seems that in addition to too much consumption of chakra spiral shuriken, it can only cause some trouble to the spot. Sure enough, although I couldn't break through the need, I couldn't help but have a layer of hair. The heat that was steamed and burned was burned to the spot, but the effect was small, but the spot became a big red face. "Old guy. You are dead." The spot was a little angry. Masahiko. I put a counter-effect technique, what to do, online, etc., very urgent. Episode 45, not my changed story. The sun is setting, and the battle is nearing the end. The enduring ninjutsu on the battlefield has come to an end and gradually evolved into a physical confrontation. In the case of the three disciples, Masahiko has no time to care. In the face of the attack of the spot, the repair of the body in the body is not enough. Oh, if I practiced the body early. Jing Yan sighed in her heart. I can barely persist in the body of the plaque, but also thanks to the disciple who has received the well, and the spot is not in the best condition because of eye problems. Although facing a crisis, Jing Yan is not too anxious, because the surrounding environment gradually overlaps with the scene deep in his heart. In the distance, Uchiha Izumi was forced into the wind by the day, because the hand of the of thunder was created by Masahiko in the middle of the day, and Quan Nai's long knife was cut off. In desperation, Chuan Nai can only use the illusion with the near-loaded riding wheel eye, and kicked the ball in the daytime. Art Fire escaped fireball. In the face of the fireball, the hands are printed, water margin water dragon bomb. The collision of fire and water transforms into the water vapor of the sky, like the technique of fog, completely obscuring the field of view. During the day, I was thrown out of a few bitterness, but it was already clear when I wrote it. Uchiha Izumi snorted, cursing that I didn't write the fate of the wheel eye. The body escaped the bitterness, but found that the last one of the bitterness had some strange symbols. Flying thunder. The shouts in the day spread throughout the battlefield. Sure enough, it is indeed this battle. Jing Yan murmured, "This is over." Opposite to Masahiko, the spot also refused to attack again, and a momentary support for the spring will fall. Masahiko sees the story and finally returns to the right track. He sits on the ground regardless of the image. As for what he said, he has no psychological experience. Even if it is not forbearance, I have never encountered such a dangerous situation. If it is 10 minutes later, it may be strong. Jing Yan shook his head and smiled. In the past, people who faced more than me were hiding one by one with their ability to perceive. This time. Thinking of this, Jing Yan was surprised to find that the distant spots actually launched an attack on the day. Right, the column is not here, the spot cannot stop. Jing Yan is anxious, he will get up and help the day. At this time, a familiar voice came from the battlefield, Muwad Ingot. Call. This is really over. Jing Yan raised half of his fell again. The stupid voice between the columns sounded like a Scorpio. Jing Yan was sitting on the battlefield and watching Uchiha people give up their resistance. They watched a quarrel between the columns and the hustle and bustle, watching Uchiha plaques hold Chuan-Nai with the remnants to evacuate from the battlefield. Sure enough, even with such a big advantage, the column still let go of the spot, and this story finally returned to the right track. Jing Yan thought about it carefully. The change of the plot happened from where it happened, and it caused such a big crisis. Only because of the fairy tales learned early? Jing Yan muttered, I hope he can give me an explanation. Jing Yan looked at the stunned Chang Tianyu after being tied to the column. The quarrel between the columns and the day ended, and a moment came to Jing Yan. Second grandfather, this time thanks to you, I said, you are fine. Masahiko shook his head and smiled. I'm fine, I won't die for a while. He didn't explain his appearance. Then he asked, what happened to Chanyu? When I mentioned this problem, the column was also confused. Chanyu, crazy, suddenly attacked me on the road and always said that I am a Uchiha family. But it is impossible. His parents are all thousands of people, and he has not been different for many years. But I have checked and found that he has had illusion. Masahiko was shocked and changed his will. Don't be God? Busy questioning, between the columns, what is a god? No, nothing, it can't be a god. Xingyan replied, revealing the color of thinking. If the Uchiha family of this era can use other gods, the use of the warring states between the columns is over, and it is impossible to use them in the hands of Tanyu. In the meantime, Xingyan thought of 5 years ago. In the name of the palace, he saw something that he was very concerned about. One of the small people who participated in the banquet was like a pommel horse, and the pommel horse was an animated original story. Xingyan always thought that he was wrong. Between the columns, have you heard of the pommel horse? The column between the face of thinking, the pommel horse family, seems to have heard that in the west of the country of fire, there is such a small family, deep and simple, the strength of the people is generally not strong. Sure enough, Xingyan sighed, crying and laughing. I always thought that it was a plot that I changed. Now I find that this hard fight is really embarrassing. Animation original group. Even you are pitting me. Xingyan looked at the column and explained, this family is not strong enough to specialize in illusion. But every few years, there will be a group of people who have awakened the unique blood and can control the 5 senses of others. The column suddenly realized, is Tanyu the middle of this technique? Second grandfather, can you crack it? Masahiko shook his head. This kind of blood illusion can only be solved by the surgeon. I am afraid you have to go there in person, and others may be hardly affected by their illusion. Nod between the columns to indicate understanding. At this time, he walked over and glanced at his older brother. Big brother, this time we lost more than 500 people, about 1,000 people were slightly injured, and dozens of people were seriously injured. I am afraid that they will not be able to adhere to the hui. Said, looked at Xingyan, 2 grandfather, your 3 disciples are all right, suffered a slight injury, you feel at ease. Masahiko breathed a sigh of relief and suddenly saw what it meant like to let him go with peace of mind. Masahiko stood up and bit his finger. The technique of psychic summoned a huge embarrassment. My chakra has recovered a bit, so that the seriously injured people of the 1,000 hands come to me and should be able to rescue them. Touched by the face, I glanced at the column. Big brother, the second grandfather looks like 1,000 hands over you. A smile between the columns, this time is really a loss, can only smile and face the accusation. The two went to arrange the tribes, to carry the seriously wounded to Xingyan here. Xingyan glanced at him and nodded. The huge cockroaches were broken down into small cockroaches, and all the wounded were treated. 5 minutes later, Masahiko was exhausted and relieved the practice of psychic. This time his chakra was really exhausted. Looking up, the entire column and 3 disciples surrounded him in the middle, his eyes filled with tears, and Yan Yan's mouth was pumping. His heart said, how can it be like a body to say goodbye, should I lie down? Thinking of this, suddenly it was black, and it really fell down. I heard the last few voices before the coma. 2 grandfather. 2, teacher. 3, episode 46, Battle of the Soul. At the moment when Xingyan fell, his heart was in vain. Although they are in the heart of the column, it is normal for Xingyan to fall down at this time, but he understands that what is the overdraft vitality is all nonsense. Is it right? I just picked up my head and was too anxious? This is his last thought before the coma. Wind and valley battlefields. After Xingyan fell, the 3 disciples burst into tears. Chucking between the columns, 2 grandfather, you are going all the way, you will never forget the help of our thousands of hands. I was saddened by the sorrow. I took a look at the front 2 steps and looked at Xingyan carefully. Big brother. I didn't care about the column and I was still talking to myself. Big brother. Don't cry. The second grandfather is still alive, breathing is steady, just falling asleep. Looked up between the columns, and his face was wrong. Really? The 3 disciples were overjoyed. Masahiko is deep in consciousness. Xingyan found himself in a place that was both familiar and unfamiliar. Here is the vortex? The place is right. When did these buildings change so retro, or black and white? And the ethnicity is so big, is it because the population has grown? After that, Xingyan saw a huge war. I can't hear the sound, I can't see the face, I can only see this battle from the black and white light and shadow. In black and white, countless people fall, and countless people rush. 2 seemingly stalwarts were fighting each other until one person who fell into the wind took out a disc. After a few actions, the 2 were simultaneously sucked into the disc and the battle finally came to a close. All that remains is a piece of debris. Disc? Is it a mask? Masahiko whispered and looked helpless. I said that it is only 2 points to witness the destruction of a corpse. It turns out that you are engaged in ghosts, death. I was in the fire shadow version of the house? Xingyan gently shook his head, but a relaxed smile. Countless passersby told Xingyan that the soul power of the passerby was twice that of the average person, and Masahiko was convinced. The picture in black and white is broken, leaving only the endless space. There are only 2 people left in the space, or 2 souls. Is it a death? In just 2 years, it has gradually become a human form from a faint soul. But I am Nima. How am I a stickman? Masahiko bowed his head and was shocked and thin. The thin legs of the arm are obviously a stickman. The opposite death has instinctively rushed over to him, and Yen turned and ran. Hell, the power of the soul is twice like this? The seniors, I am dying. Xingyan ran while squatting, and his heart was wronged. Okay. I still have to rely on myself. My soul world should be my master. Somehow, this time, the first time that I was thinking of it was an Aligned Stickman video that I saw in the past. Give me strength, League of Legends. Give me a Twilight Goddess possession. Thinking of this, Xingyan actually had a long sword and a shield. Masahiko was overjoyed, steadied his footsteps, and turned to face death. Death. The Zenith Blade. 5 minutes later. The stickman who lost an arm ran in the innocent wilderness. The power gap is too big. Xingyan's sword stab is not painful in the body of death. In the end, he still has to take a bite of the soul of death to get out. Xingyan looked at the dead gods who were chasing after him. They were sorrowful and angry, and they were deceiving too much. Uchiha did not do this to me. Hell on your own. System, come out, save your life. Name, Swirling Masahiko. Age, 22 years old. Forbearance, 553, plus, body, 489, plus, surgery, 3,834, plus 10, convertible, 3-body surgery, LV10, 100000, full order, sword throwing, LV10, 100000, full order, soil properties, LV4, 121223/200000, plus, wind attribute, can be fused 1/2, LV6, 425628/600000, plus, fire attribute, can be fused 1/2, LV6, 412335/600000, plus, water properties, LV2, 10,000/20,000, plus, ray attribute, LV4, 103608/200000, plus, ceiling, LV6, 413328/600000, plus, yang attribute, LV5, 200000/400000, plus, in attribute, LV1-1000/0, plus, special talent, perception, mining LV6, 10030/20,000, casting LV8, 40059/60,000, comprehensive evaluation, S, witness point, 41 points. What is the ghost of in attribute LV1, is it because I have eaten an arm? However, it is also a blessing in disguise, and the in attribute finally appears on the property bar. Masahiko decisively added all the witness points to the in attribute. In attribute, LV6, 40900/600000, plus, Masahiko's stickman's arm grew out and it felt like someone was inflating him and the whole soul swelled up quickly. When all the changes were completed, Xingyan looked up and found that the death was already in front of him, and his arms were stretched out like a reflex. The death was suddenly pushed to the ground by him, and he struggled without any resistance. At this time, Masahiko had time to look at his current soul. It is not the imagination of becoming a giant, but the same as his true appearance, even the sense of power is similar. Is the soul of LV6 so solid? So, if it is 9th level 10, can it be like 6 fairy people, can it appear as a soul? Xingyan thought, shaking his head slightly, I don't want will die. Masahiko looked at the dead man who was constantly struggling. If it is decades later, your strength is enough to absorb the 9 tails. I still really can't help you. But now. Xingyan attacked both hands, smashing the whole death, and the fragments actively drifted to Xingyan. Xingyan was slightly relieved and felt that the soul had solidified again. In attribute, LV6, 510000/600000, plus, good, it's equivalent to getting 10 testimonies, and. In the eyes of Masahiko, there was a row of familiar Chinese characters. Testimony and completely changed the story of the Huiying World branch line, the end of death, get the witness point 8, 10. Plus the previous 2 points, that is to say, the whole corpse is sealed at 10 o'clock? Jing Yan muttered, this important skill is only 10 o'clock, and the Hui Night Annihilation gave me 50 points, because Hui Hui is too important and still the main line, or is it because the branch line is at most 10 points? Masahiko didn't want to understand that the system without instructions couldn't really hurt. It's time to go out. I don't know how many people are waiting in anxiously. Do you see if I drop some tears between the columns? I think this time, this coma is really the time. Jing Yan's mind was moved, and the soul world dissipated. In the real world, Jing Yan opened his eyes. To grandfather, you finally woke up. A gentle female voice came. Masahiko thought about the first person who could see it, but never imagined that this person would be a Mito. Oh, yes, there are thousands of bears and children who are already 8 years old. Episode 47, Godly Eyes. To grandfather. The shouts of the constitutional singer will be awakened from the sacred god. Masahiko smiled. Small constitution, I have never seen it so big in 5 years. It looks like a Mito, and it looks like a Mito. Second grandfather, the looks between the columns are okay. The waterer interjected. Hey, Jing Yan said with a smile. It seems that these years, your relationship with the column is good. Masahiko looks around the room and reveals memories. Good familiar room, this is a 1,000-handed room. 14 years ago, I sent you to marry and live here. The Mito also showed a chuckle. Yes, here, you have also practiced a seal. Masahiko was exposed and finally understood why Mito was here. The 3 disciples and the entire column thought that Jing Yan was stunned by the excessive consumption of vitality, but the Mito knew that Jing Yan should have been this appearance. Sudden coma must make her worry. After he was over, he smiled gratifiedly. I count you filial. The Mito nodded. I took the constitution to the driving range. He didn't practice today. Masahiko nodded, go. Waiting for the Mito and the constitution to go out, Jing Yan shook his head with a little doubt. Since he opened his eyes, he discovered that the whole world has undergone subtle changes. Is it because of the Yin attribute chakra? Jing Yan muttered, looking at his property bar. God is happy? Masahiko noticed that the ability to perceive in a particular talent has disappeared, replacing the ability to be called a happy eye. Jing Yan's mind is moving, his right hand is smashing, and his heart is shining, launching. For a time, the chakra fluctuations of the entire Qianzhou nationality were all incorporated into the induction by Jing Yan. Jing Yan extended the force and was enough to sense the radius of dozens of miles. God is happy, is this the ability of Xiangling? Jing Yan always thought that his inductive ability is the same kind of ability as Xiangling, and the scope is small because his talent is not good. Is the advanced version of perception? It is because the power of the soul has become stronger. Jing Yan muttered. It seems that the talent of the afterlife is very great. If it is not caught by the big snake pill, I am afraid it will not lose. Let's take a female ninja from Chennai. Masahiko used his ability to carefully explore the entire family. This is the position of the Patriarch's Hall. It is there, the column is not there. The 1,000 hands are not there. It seems that I am going to find a pommel horse to discuss it. Masahiko is going to study the newly acquired ability carefully, but finds that 3 familiar chakra fluctuations have come to the door. Come in. Before he came to knock on the door, Jing Yan took the initiative to speak. Teacher. It was the 3 disciples of Jing Yan who came in. Listen to the sister of the Mito, Auntie, saying that you are awake. The 3 disciples were unanimous. Masahiko scratched his head slightly. Yitzi, how do you call the aunt of Mito? Just call your sister. But my mother is also called Mizu Auntie. Nothing, every theory, from my point of view, you have to call him a prostitute. Okay. Ending this episode of The Name of the Mito, the 3 disciples finally remembered to ask for a warmth. Masahiko repeatedly explained that this is not an overdraft of vitality, but a special technique, but no one believes. In the end, Masahiko was helpless and drove out 3 disciples and said that he needed rest. After the 3 disciples went out, Jing Yan lay back on the bed. Of course not for self-cultivation, but for thinking about what to do. It seems that this time it is not really a loss of vitality is not easy to explain. Jing Yan muttered, punching with a hand, that's it. Every day with a transformation, I am 1 year old, until 50? Is it a little less to use a young face, to lose 2 years of life? That's 53 years old. Use it for 5 years at a time, and at least I can use it 3 or 4 times at a time. Masahiko finally found a reasonable way to explain his changes in appearance, so the next 3 days, 3 disciples were horrified to find that Masahiko was getting old. Masahiko did not bother to explain this time, but observed the performance of 3 disciples on the side. What is gratifying to him is that Nanako has obviously been a lot more serious in cultivation, and gradually revealed the extraordinary talent of seals, After the experience of this period, the time has gradually matured, no longer so timid, hang Jingjing several times. As for Jing Wei, he is impeccable in his efforts and his progress is getting faster and faster. Thus, in the second driving range, the following dialogue can often occur. Jing, come, let the teacher teach you this young body. Teacher. Well shed tears and rushed up. Ah. A scream, Jing Hao flew back. Masahiko is also helpless. He always feels that he is in the body. If he does not take this opportunity to teach more about it, if there is no accident after 2 or 3 years, he will probably be slammed by the well. Jing Yan also had doubts, even if Jing Hao did not get his guidance, talent should not be buried, the original has never mentioned Jing. I am afraid that something has changed, Jing Yan has been guarding against the accident. Is it sacrificed when the vortex is destroyed? This kind of day has been going on for a week until the column returns, followed by a shy hand of Tianyu. What? Big brother, have you let go of the pommel horse? The patriarch's hall did not, and the shouts of the hustle and bustle spread all around. I am not surprised at all. Next to it, Jing Yan's mouth was slightly pumped, and she thought of it. Don't mention this beforehand. The column smirked and his eyes gestured to the 1,000 hands. Qianzhou Tianyu took the first 2 steps and walked up to Jing Yan's body and slammed into the ground. Thank you for the sacrifice you made this time, or I will become a sinner of thousands of hands. Masahiko rolled his eyes and thought, I made too much sacrifice. I used to maintain my 48-year-old face. Now I have to be 53 years old. My handsome face has gradually gone away. In the mouth, he replied, you are welcome, you are also in the illusion. Qianzhou Tianyu heard his words slowly and looked up at the column. The patriarch, this time I have made such a big mistake, I am willing to give up the post of the elders, and the future wars will be rushed to the forefront. Shaking his head between the columns, I will not be much more in the future war. I have let go of the pommel horse this time, just to show other families the sincerity of our thousands. After some time, I want to visit them one by one, and end this war, build a peaceful village. Big brother, you still have this unrealistic fantasy. Not an illusion, I will convince them. As for Uchiha, I will eventually look for spots. He also has the same dreams as me and will agree. The eye between the columns is squatting. Hesitating during the day, shaking his head, big brother, this war, my sword cut the key to Uchiha Izumi, I am afraid I will die. Between columns. Episode 48, gagged, a month later. 1,000 hands first driving range. Fairy law, melting, spiral shuriken. Masahiko turned his head, the real man never looked back and exploded. In the past month, Masahiko has stabilized his appearance at the age of 53 and finally settled the hearts of 3 disciples. Masahiko was not completely idle, and he did it again when there was nothing. The elimination of death received 80 points of testimony, and Masahiko added 28 points to the soil property, and finally merged with the melting. After adding 20 points to the yang attribute, the physical ability and the amount of chakra increased. The remaining 32 points are held down, and I am going to point the dust mites next time. A breeze blew through the face, and a momentary moment appeared in the body of Jing Yan. To grandfather, my older brother called. Half of the words suddenly stopped. Your big brother called me? Jing Yan opened his mouth in confusion and turned his head. Hey! What happened to your first driving range? Jing Yan was innocent, because he found that the first driving range was smoldering under his spiral sword. This kind of power, I am afraid that the spot must be able to break in the second stage. But now, I am afraid that the spot is already an eternal eye, I feel that I am always a step late. Jing Yan said. I am going to find your big brother. Jing Yan confessed, leaving a messy mess in the wind. Come to the 1,000 hands hall, the column is ready to go. Jing Yan snorted and said, are you ready to lead between the columns? Going alone? Nodded between the columns, has been delayed for a month, this matter is not too late. Do you want me to go with me? Jing Yan asked in confusion. Oh. Hesitated between the columns. If you want to go together best, you can represent the attitude of the whirlpool. If you don't want to go, tell me. Jing Yan thought about it and asked, which family are you going to go to first? The flying family, we have had cooperation before, it will be smoother. Hey fly. Masahiko fell into memories, remembering the young boy Sasuke who met 9 years ago. At this time, 3 generations should be born. Jing Yan murmured, replied, I am going with you. Simply packed up a down package, the column and Jing Yan started together, and there were 3 small tails behind. The 3 disciples left the vortex for the first time, and all of them were reluctant to go back. They wanted to follow Jing Yan. When I came to the Feifei family, everything was smoother than I expected. Because the patriarch of the Feifei family has been replaced, the 22-year-old Yufei Sasuke became the patriarch of the Feifei. He was called the Hope of Feifei by the whole family. At the age of 22, he was already on the peak. If the strength is raised again, the first generation of the patriarchal ninja will become a medium-sized family. Yufei Sasuke is very respectful to Xingyan and meets as a teacher. After knowing the meaning of the column, he agreed after a slight hesitation, and he also took the initiative to help persuade other minors. The atmosphere eased for a while, and Xingyan's mouth smirked and turned to 3 disciples. Come, say hello to your master. After that, pointing to Nanako, I introduced to Sasuke. Sasuke, this is your second division. Pointing to the child, this is your Shushi. Hey. Smile and squirt, pointing to Jingjing. This is a little white dragon horse. Our corps is officially assembled and can be set off. The 4 looked at each other, and Nana turned a blind eye. He said to Yufei Sasuke, Senior, don't care, the teacher often said something messy, don't bother. After the laughter, Yufei Sasuke was slightly serious, and he was right. Teacher, can you teach me the skills you taught me? Who is it for? Although Xingyan has not used the spiral pill, he does not want to let the posterity of Naruto's Naruto pass. My son, the sundial. Yufei Sasuke said, smiling, he was only 4 years old. He checked the property of chakra a few days ago. He has 5 attributes. He will definitely surpass me and become a great ninja. 3 generations are 4 years old, that is to say, there are still 5 years since the establishment of my. Xingyan heard this familiar name from Yufei's mouth and was immersed in contemplation. Ah, yes, yes. Xingyan returned to God, seeing Fei Sasuke revealing a disappointing look and answering again and again. The scene was relaxed again, and the column completely described his dream of building a village to Sasuke. Sasuke. A beautiful future is presented in front of his eyes. Although Fei Sasuke is not an idealist like a column, but there are also some heartbeats. Take the initiative to open the way, the inter-column patriarch. I will try to persuade our flying allies. The Jutsuin family will not have any problems. Others think that it will not be too objectionable. For our small people, it is not easy to survive in the warring states. Said, turned to Masahiko, now the patriarch of the Shirtsuin family is Shimura Jian. That kid, he should agree. Masahiko is sinking, Shimura will not have a son. Sarutobi Sasuke looked suspicious, how do you know? There is a son, the name is Jutsuin group, and the sundial is generally big but the talent is far worse, just a single wind attribute chakra. He said, and he showed a slightly proud expression. Masahiko sighed, you 2 sons will become unacceptable characters. Sarutobi Sasuke reveals a happy color, let you say goodbye. After that, Yufei Sasuke and the column carefully discussed the next itinerary. Xingyan and the 3 disciples listened bored on the sidelines. At the end of the discussion, Xingyan opened the column between the columns. Between the columns, I took 3 disciples back to the vortex, and I will not participate in the rest. Xingyan is not willing to follow the family between the columns, because there is basically no witness point to get, and there is some urgency in the heart of Xingyan. Now that the spot has got an eternal eye, I am afraid that he will once again face the spot with his current strength. Nothing to fight back. Therefore, I still want to hurry to the Hui people and work hard to cultivate. There are still 5 years to establish the wood leaf. The battle that has lost the north is at least 4 years. I hope to find a way to improve my strength before this. When I heard that I was going to leave, the column was obviously stunned. When I came, I was very interested. I didn't expect to go back suddenly. To grandfather, your body. I thought about it between the columns, and I was worried. Masahiko rolled his eyes. I have no problem with my body. Don't forget, I am a great elder of the vortex. There are still many things in the family that I need to deal with. The column did not believe in the rhetoric of Xingyan, but did not stop it. Teacher, I hope that the next time I meet is in our common village. Yufei Sasuke said. Masahiko nodded and returned to the whirlpool with 3 disciples who had not played enough. As for the 4-year-old Fei Ri, Xingyan did not want to go and see. After 5 years, I don't want to see it, I will see it every day. Episode 49, 8-Door Armor, 3 years later. Name, Swirling Masahiko. Age, 21 years old. Forbearance, 632, plus. Body, 824, plus. Surgery, 4,543, plus 10. Convertible, 3 body surgery. LV10, 100000. Full order. Sword throwing, LV10, 100000. Full order. Soil properties, can be fused 1/2, LV6, 43659860000. Plus, wind attribute, can be fused 1/2, LV6, 497738/600000. Plus, fire attribute, can be fused 1/2, LV6, 462243/600000 plus water properties LV2 10,000/20,000 plus ray attribute LV5 200007/400000 plus ceiling LV6 413328/600000 plus yang attribute LV6 400000/600000 plus in attribute LV6 510000/600000 plus special talent God's heart mining LV6 10030/20,000 casting LV8 40059/60,000 comprehensive evaluation S witness point 32 points. Masahiko looked at his property bar and sighed slightly. To say that in the past 3 years, Xingyan has been working hard to cultivate, and the progress is indeed not small. Progress has saved at least 30 points from the witness point. However, the comprehensive evaluation is still S, which proves that there is no qualitative breakthrough in Xingyan, and it is still limited than before. In terms of age, there are some changes. After 20 years old, he can only increase and cannot reduce it again. It seems that Masahiko is no longer 18 years old. 32 points of witness point, too little, even if all are added, there will not be too many breakthroughs. Seeing the witness point, Xingyan muttered to himself, 3 years in the family to practice a little testimony cannot get the warring states have not had much of a thing in these years. The column basically persuaded all the families except the Uchiha family. Thousands of hands, and Uchiha had several wars. The Uchiha wave has not been shot, and it is estimated that it is still adapting to the eternal eye. Therefore, the Uchiha family that the Thousand Hands and Ones played defeated, and the proud Yukibo people actually surrendered to the Thousand Hands. It seems that the last battle is not far away, but my strength. Hey, my whirlpool is a bit of a failure. Masahiko yelled and shook his head. Teacher, we are too. Far away, the shouts of Jinghao came, followed by the quilt that was already a girl. Now there are only 2 apprentices in Masahiko. Of course, it's not what happened to Nanako, but married last year. Now it's a man who is about to become a mother. As for her husband, she is 1 year younger than her. Xingyan has also seen the boy who has done the most push-ups during the test. Teacher, we just came over from Nana's sister, she asked me to give you a greeting. According to the crisp voice of the child. Masahiko nodded and said, what else? Yitzi slammed the well, and Jingjing shouted, Teacher, let's have another matchup. I have developed a new trick. Masahiko was helpless. In the past 3 years, Jinghao has come to Jingjing every time to make a lesson. Good, come on, look at your new trick. Xingyan, perfunctory. Oh, I am up, teacher. Jinghao shouted, 8-door armor, the first door, the birth door, open. The violent chakra provoked a gust of wind, and it blew up the full red hair of Masahiko, and it also blew the heart of Masahiko. Hey! Jingyan's punch was in the middle of the box, and Yen Yen flew out. Teacher. Easy took a look at Jingjing and quickly chased the past. You are fine. Jingjing scratched his head. Is my new trick so powerful? Closed the door and chased it out. I'm fine, good, can't be better. Masahiko laughed twice and replied. At the same time, Xingyan slipped through a row of familiar Chinese characters, witness, and slightly changed the story of the Huiying world branch line, 8 armor, get the witness point 10, 2, point. Small changes, it seems that the 8-door armor should have been developed by Jingjing, and now it is only time ahead. I said that his physical talent is high. I should have thought of it. I can be sorted into the Book of Seals, which shows that the 8 armor was not developed by the Qianzhou people, but also by people who are close to the Thousand Hands. With the talent and perseverance of Jing, I am afraid that in the 20s, there will be patriarchal strength. He is the grandson of Xinghong, and becoming a vortex patriarch will not surprise me. Masahiko is thinking about this, and there is a voice next to him. Jing Wei, you see the good things you did, the teachers are so old, you punched him in this punch. I am so stupid. Masahiko's face was black, and Jing went on to say, Teacher, it's okay, nothing, you are my teacher in the future, Jing Hao. Xingyan returned to God and said quickly. Well, Yitzi, the teacher is really stupid. Jingjing muttered. After half an hour, Xingyan, who finally explained clearly, wiped the sweat on his forehead, and finally let the 2 disciples believe that he was not stupid. Jing Hao, how can you open a few doors? Xingyan asked. 6 doors. Jing Hao replied happily. Xingyan Wei thought about it. According to physical comparison, I should be able to open 7 doors, 8 doors maybe barely, but I don't want to die. This technique hurts the body and must be classified as a ban. You can't teach other people at will. For the time being, we only have 2 exercises. And the 8 doors can't be fully opened. The whole meeting has a lot of vitality. I am afraid that after the Vortex family used it, we'll die. Jing Yan slightly contemplative, opening the way to Jing. Jing Hao nodded. I know, teacher, I will have unbearable pain after I open 5 doors. Jing Yan's face was stiff and his heart was dark. How to forget the pain, this is still thinking about 7 things. I will open a 5-door game in the future. Teacher, you and Akai practice this, what should I do? On the side, Izumi asked. Oh. Masahiko hesitated. The 14-year-old Yitzi has learned all the wind attribute fire attributes of Masahiko, and there is really no teaching. Yitzi, you are not suitable for practicing physical skills, or continue to practice ninjutsu, and then there are some progress, I can try to teach you to burn it. Jing Yan said, he is also somewhat self-confident. If the blood continues to limit this thing, if it is not a systemic reason, it is really difficult to learn without a corresponding lineage. Teacher, you forgot, I have cultivated the soil property not long ago, said the child angrily. Jing Yan's face is stiff. Have you told me? Yitzi's eyes widened, and Jing Yan quickly comforted him. Well, it's my fault. I teach you bandits. Really, how come more and more like Nana? In the following 6 months, Jing Yan was immersed in cultivation. Half-year later. 8 armor, 7th door, shocked, open. On the driving range, there was a shout from Jing Yan. Oh, off. Heaven, how is it so painful? Episode 50, Middle School Knowledge, Can't Be Forgot. After being able to open 7 of the 8 armor, the practice has come to an end. I opened the 7 doors, I should be able to circulate with the current spots and columns. I whirlwind and come back again. Jing Yan muttered to himself. But this is too painful. Jing Yan gnawed his teeth, and he was not as nervous as the thick eyebrows. The 8-door armor can be used without it. Before that, I got a 20-point testimony. It is enough to add some dust. Soil properties can be fused 1/3 LV7 606598/10000000 plus wind attribute can be fused 1/3 LV7 607738/10000000 plus fire attribute can be fused 1/3 LV7 602243/10000000 plus 42 points of witness points used. Jing Yan looked at his own soil and fire 3 attributes, nodded with satisfaction. LV7 really can combine 3 attributes, and I am coming. Masahiko can't wait to combine the 3 attributes together. End to end, is it not a fusion? In the eyes of Masahiko, the 3 attributes in the body are connected in the first place and are triangular. The wind connects the fire connects the soil, and the soil connects the wind. Dust mites, LV7 1816579/30000000 plus call. Masahiko breathed a sigh of relief and finally got the dust mites, but it seems that something is missing. Masahiko did not think much, and immediately went to the forest outside the family to test the ninjutsu. As for why not go to the first driving range? This is a whirlpool, not 1,000 hands. Exploring with the heart of God, I felt that there were no people around, and my hands were printed. Dust mites, the original stripping technique. Conical crystals swept through, countless trees broke, and the ground was plowed out of a deep ditch. This power. Jing Yan is silent. I don't feel very strong. In terms of destructive power, there is not much more than my spiral sword. Yan Yan scratched his head and was slightly disappointed. When Jing Yan approached, he discovered the difference. The dust mites will annihilate the hit, and the spiral sword can only fry it. Masahiko nodded and was finally satisfied. So, try another trick. If you didn't guess wrong, I should be able to. Masahiko is a condensed god, and can perceive the dust in the air to be manipulated. This is what the LV7 bandits can do. Masahiko manipulated the dust with his heart and attached it to his feet. The whole person got out of the ground and floated. Sure enough. I can fly. Masahiko smiled and floated into the air. Try another trick, Jing Yan said, dust mites, the limit stripping technique. The palm of your hand glowed white and passed away. Masahiko was awkward and almost fell from the air. I can't put it out in the enhanced version? Also, in the original book, the hand and the big wildwood can be released together, then. Immortal mode, launch. Jing Yan was transformed into a fairy mode, and it was printed again. Sinfa dust dip bound stripping. This time, the white light in the hand finally fired out. After the eyes of Jing Yan, only white was left. The roar of the ground even could not be heard, and the world was silent. After a minute, the white light disappeared completely. There was only one huge pit left in front of Masahiko. There was no forest, no weeds. Forest disappeared? It was amazing. At this time, Masahiko did not see the power of the technique. Instead, he thought that there would be a space between the columns to make the vortex family green. After thinking about it, Xingyan reacted and what his surgery did. Almost half of the celestial chakras are consumed, which is more than 3 times more than the spiral sword. The power of this technique is probably 30 times higher. In the heart of Xingyan's ecstasy, the life of the warring states was 66 years old, and finally there was a technique that could always be used as a killer. I am afraid that even if it is a complete body of the spot, it will never be unscathed. This move is stronger than the real number of killings between the pillars in the mining war. Masahiko is thinking, and Kagami has already felt that a large group of chakra fluctuations are approaching, and the one headed by is the Vortex Patriarch. Masahiko looked at the forest that was destroyed by him. Promoting the spirit of Lei Feng, doing good things can't be named. Gradually rising, flying away from the air. Back to the driving range, Masahiko's excitement is not diminished, but chakra is half consumed. Or first remove the dust mites, resume chakra. Xingyan muttered. Remove, lift, lift. Why is there no detachable behind the dust mites? Xingyan studied for a long time, the 3 attributes are still firmly connected, and there is no separation. The bandits soil guns. Masahiko's hands were printed, and the guns were pierced from the ground, and he was relieved. Also, the shadow of the earth is used by the bandits. Come out, my little fireball. Small fireball? Fluid melt armor? After repeated trials, Xingyan found that the martial arts of the 3 characteristics of the fire and the earth can be used, and these blood limits have completely failed. After all, the first and last cannot be merged together. Ah! My burning and meditation. My smoldering has never been used again. Why can't the dust mites be split? Xingyan yelled in his heart. A tall middle-aged man with glasses come to mind. The triangle is the most stable structure. That is the high school math teacher of Masahiko, and the memory of more than 70 years ago has reappeared. The triangle is the most stable structure? Xingyan muttered to himself, showing a smile. This story tells us that the knowledge of middle school cannot be forgotten. Forget it, there are dust mites to use, and those blood continues to limit the boundaries. After the collapse of Xingyan, he was optimistic. But soon his face sank again, because there were people to inform the Vortex Chief to find him. I just quit the forest outside the family. At this time, some of them are guilty. When I came to the Patriarch's hall, Xingyan saw that Degu's face was normal and his heart was relieved. 2 uncles, what kind of ninjutsu is it? How powerful is it? The Vortex Chief said. Xingyan snorted, Ninjutsu? No? The second uncle is not shirking, just the big change outside the family. If it is not you, how could you not go over it? The Patriarch smiled. Xingyan's face changed. I didn't expect it to be flawed. I'm going to explain it. The Patriarch went on to say, nothing, you developed a great power, and I'm too happy for you. It's the autumn of many things, the forest is gone, it's gone. Let's go. A lot of autumn? Xingyan no longer explained, but asked in confusion. The Uchiha wave spot appeared again, and the battle between the columns and the column changed the terrain of 100 miles. It was evenly matched. I sent people to investigate in the past, it is not like human beings can do it. Now all the families call them to endure the 2 gods. The Patriarch explained. As a result of Masahiko, it is a ecstasy. Does the spot finally appear again? The last battle is not far away. Would leaves finally come?